Albert Myles Mejia. Thank you so much for being here, bro. I feel like it's a long time coming, so I appreciate it, dog.
No problem. Yeah, definitely a long time. Just like we were talking about earlier, this is our first time meeting.
Yeah.
But we've been in the same circle of friends for over a decade now.
Yeah, man. And it's funny how that works out. Like, how it's like just the perfect timing, synchronicity, like things just kind of line up like that. Like, I've definitely seen you from afar. Like, I'm aware of your work, and it's dope to finally be here in the flesh with you, dog.
Yeah, and same with you. Like I was telling you earlier, I was like, I have music with your name on it.
Yo, that's crazy.
And I've seen music videos, I've seen photos. I've heard of you from the homies JD and from Chris. But for some reason, when from like our late teens to our 20s, we never met each other till now.
Yo, that's crazy. But man, glad you're here.
Thank you.
You know, for myself, getting to know myself, it has been like one of the best ways for me to have done that was from like looking back at my childhood and my upbringing, and that's how I've gotten to know myself. So I'm curious about you, man. Like, what was your upbringing like? What was your childhood like? And how did that affect your journey up until like who you are right now?
Yeah. My upbringing was dope, man. You know, like I grew up with immigrant parents. So being older and being in high school and telling them like, I'm going to be a dancer, or I'm going to start this clothing company, or I'm going to start a business in sneakers and fashion, you know, as immigrant parents, there's, what the fuck are you doing?
100%.
You know, like, it's one of those things where my parents, they came to a country, and out of all my family members, there's 5 of us, I was the only one born here, and I always used to hear, you know, you're so lucky for being here, which is a true blessing. You know what I mean? Hearing stories about my siblings growing up and being made fun of, being called fobs and all that kind of stuff, you know, that's tough. That's tough on family members. And you know, for me growing up, I was very lucky. I was very fortunate. Both my parents raised me right. Obviously, there's a lot of things that they didn't really understand. But that's something like I can't really blame them for. So, you know, there are some traumas that are there growing up, but at the same time, those traumas kind of helped me deal with who I am today, and kind of taught me about myself and how I want to help not really mold my son, but just to, you know, understand where I act a certain way sometimes with him because it was just all I knew. But now learning and understanding and seeing that, I'm able to kind of correct myself.
100%.
But yeah, growing up, I had 2 dope parents, gave me everything that they could. I grew up in the Northeast, so
yeah, same.
You know what I mean? Like growing up from the Northeast, like there's something about being from the Northeast that you're super proud about.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's like, yeah, it's like it wasn't easy out there, right?
Yeah.
Like it was like, and again, just going back to what you said about your parents, like at the end of the day, that's love. Like they just want you to have an easy life, and the path of like starting your own clothing brand or like dancing or whatever you're trying to do isn't quote unquote safe to them, right? Like, so they just want to make sure that you're okay and you have an easier life than they did. And yeah, so like the Northeast, how did that impact your upbringing, I guess?
Well, growing up in the Northeast is just like you're very tempted to do a lot of things. You know what I mean? I was lucky enough to see some of my older cousins and stuff.
Yeah.
And I say lucky because it kind of was one of those things where they're like, don't ever do what I do. You know what I mean? And I think that really taught me a lot, taught me and me and my other cousins that are on the same age a lot about not doing any dumb shit. And they always kind of instilled that in us.
Yeah.
You know, like, yo, don't do what we do.
Especially being in those circles, right?
Yeah.
Like you were talking about like being a promoter, like helping promote events and stuff like that.
You meet a lot of people like that.
And streetwear and the whole culture, right? There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of street culture in street culture. And you really got to just be smart. And for me, and I'm not going to lie about this, I've said this in a lot of in other interviews that I've done, and I've said this to students at SAIT when they asked me what inspired me, and I always said like the mafia and gangs. And when I say that, I always say like I don't take it in a negative form. the reason why I say that is because I was very intrigued by their mindset of like hustle, power, and respect, and or money, power, and respect. But I kind of like took that mindset and kind of twisted it into a positive way. Because one of the things I remember growing up and hearing was the word hustle is so negative. You know, when you think about hustle, you think about pimps, you think about drug dealers, all that kind of stuff. And when I was coming up with the brand name for Legal Hustle, I mean, I was 20 years old when I was like doing this, and 1920, and I was trying to brainstorm with my former business partner, Jeremy. And I was just like, yo, man, like, why can't we be like Legal Hustle? Yeah. Why can't we spin the word hustle into a positive and change the negative connotation of it? And that's how it started. You know what I mean? And it was just, I like saw their mentality. I saw, you know, like you get to see the money, you know, they make money and it's easy. Yeah. Quote unquote, it's easy. But at the end of the day, they're kind of just like looking over their shoulders because you don't know. And especially growing up in that era where like you and I grew up around the same time where Asian gangs here in Calgary were big and there was 100%. A lot of shooting, right? Yeah. And I mean, they're still around, you know, but with the time that we grew up, there was a lot of shit happening.
100%. And like, I remember even me, I kind of got caught up in that whole thing, you know, like, because for me, it was just like the only masculine Asians that you saw were either like Bruce Lee or like the gangster Asians. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I kind of like fell into that. I was with the wrong friends and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, it's a really appealing kind of world, but you're right, man. It's dead end. Like you look at those people now, like, you know, we're in our 30s now, right? And I don't know anybody who's like thriving off that life or doing well. They're either dead or in jail, like straight up.
Or like, they're like us now where they're just like, fuck, man. Like I'm glad I got out of that shit. But yeah, I think for me growing up in the Northeast, you just see a lot of things like that. And it's so easy to get caught up in it. And, you know, like I had some friends that were in it, some family members that were doing that shit, but no one really said anything bad about it. Right. You know what I mean? Because it was a thing, right? It was just there. My core group of friends, we all kind of stuck, like there's 4 of us, including myself, and shout outs to them, but it was just, we knew how to hustle, but we just knew how to do it differently. Yeah. Like we weren't doing I mean, we did some fucked up shit where we, you know, you just jack shit from a store and sell it out, but it wasn't anything crazy, you know what I mean? It wasn't anything where we could have really got our shit fucked up. Right. But we just saw it, and it just kind of instilled us with this mentality of, yo, like, if they can make this much, like, I can probably do this too, but long term, you know, at a young age, I was always thinking about long term. Yeah. I never really understood short term goals as a kid. I was like, in all honesty, I was a super lazy guy. Yeah. I was super, super lazy up until I met my then girlfriend, now wife, that literally called me out. And she was just like, yo, you talk all this shit and you like talk big, but you don't do anything. Wow. You know, and this was before Legal Hustle too. And she said that to me. I was like, we just started dating, like I was 19, maybe just a little bit before a year, or maybe a year after a year. And when she said that to me, I'm like, yo, that like cut deep. Like, what? You're saying I'm all talk kind of thing? Yeah. So that kind of like woke me up. That definitely woke me up. And it was one of those things where I truly appreciate her for doing that. Because if you knew me when I was younger, I was just like all about partying and just like hanging out with friends and socializing, but I wasn't working. I wasn't like doing a lot of things, you know what I mean? Yeah. And yeah, man, like it woke me up, and I definitely was looking around me, and I was just like, yo, I got to take this mentality. Like if I like that mentality, why can't I do something positive about 100%. It?
And like, I love that, because that's actually what love is like telling someone the truth, even though they might not want to hear the truth. Yeah. And the fact that you can receive that is dope, man. Like, but I'm wondering, like, you know, obviously there's a part of your journey where you have all these dreams and all this ambition, right? But for whatever reason, it's not translating into action. Yeah. What do you feel were like those obstacles from dreaming to action? And then Yeah, like what was that? And then how did you overcome that?
So one of the things that my dad used to say to me growing up, especially because when I was 18, 2008, I graduated from high school, got into Mount Royal. I got accepted into, so this is a stupid story, but I got accepted into SAIT for journalism.
Okay.
And then I got accepted into Mount Royal for open studies or general studies. You remember that shit?
Yeah, I do.
Where you just do whatever you could just to figure out what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So my initial plan was to go to SAIT for journalism. But I was like, nah, I'm going to go to Mount Royal because my friends were like, yo, man, Mount Royal got all the hottest girls.
It did have that reputation back then.
It was like number 3 in Playboy or something like that.
Yeah.
My dumbass went to Mount Royal where I could have already I could have gone to journalism and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But at the same time, I wasn't sold on college. I wasn't sold on school. It was just my parents kept telling me when you graduate from school, you have to go to college right away. Like I didn't get to take a break. So I was like right away I was in school. I like flunked out of Mount Royal.
Wow.
I did decent in some classes, but I did math 30 pure in Mount Royal because I failed it twice in high school.
Yeah.
And I don't even know I was in pure. Like I was like cheating off people to get to certain.
Well, it's probably like Asian parent pressure. They're like, you have to take pure.
Yeah,
right?
It was just like, yo, like I did good in math. Like I was great in math up until a certain point where high school was just boring. School was just boring. I never missed a day of school. But the only thing I did was like socialize, go to dance class and gym. And then I was on the volleyball and basketball team. And that's all that mattered to me. My last year of high school, though, I couldn't play on the ball team because they were like, yo, you can only pick one sport. And you can't do certain things because you're not going to graduate. Wow. Like I literally graduated at 51%, like was my average, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And the credits, you remember back in high school, because we came from Catholic schools, but you had to have like 40 hours of volunteering. And then you have to have 100 credits. I graduated with like 102. Wow. Yo, I was so close to not graduating. I was doing physics 20 with my cousin in our last semester of high school. And if we didn't pass that shit, like we were not going to walk the stage, like, and all we can think about is our parents whooping our asses. Yeah. just cause, like that's what they want. Right. So yeah, like I graduated, went to Mount Royal, did okay, flunked out of a lot of those classes. And then when I was 19, like my dad is in the aviation industry. Okay. And our last name goes pretty deep here in like Alberta, Calgary. I mean, maybe even western side of Canada because of my dad. Like he's a workhorse. Like my dad is he's retired, but he's still working, and he's like turning 75 this year. Wow. And he's still working. He can't retire, man. And I told him, I was like, I'm gonna get into the aviation program. And this is what my dad told me. At first, he didn't want me to. He didn't want me to get into aviation. And the one thing he said to me was, find a job that you can work less and make more. And in my understanding at that time was like, okay, well, find a job, get an education, find a job that I work less and I make more money, right? So obviously in my mind, I'm also thinking, why don't I just start my own business type of thing? But I also I didn't know anything about business at that time. But he said that to me, and then I was just like, okay, like, well, you're doing it and you like it. He's like, yeah, but I love it. Just don't do it because you can possibly get a job or this and that. And even when I went into the aviation program at SAIT in 2009, all my instructors knew my dad. They all worked with my dad. Wow. They all there was already a lot of pressure on me because they would talk to me about my dad being this type of guy. And one of my other instructors though was like, I understand there's a lot of pressure on you, but do what you can do. And no matter what any other instructors are saying to you here, just, you're not your dad. Yeah. And they would talk about how amazing my dad was at his job. So I was just like, I'm fine, like whatever, I'm going to just do this 1-year program, get a job, which I did. So by the age of 20, I started working. I worked for my dad. I was like his apprentice. And then I started working on my own when I turned 21. So
Okay.
I started school 19, graduated when I was 20, got a job like in the spring, fall working with my dad. And then 2021 came, and then that's when I started working for a company. And I fucking hated that shit, bro.
Yeah.
Like, the people that I worked with also knew my dad, but they were just dicks. There was just maybe like one or two guys that were like super willing to teach, you know what I mean? When you're in school, you're just learning theory.
Mm-hmm.
When you get handed a fucking airplane and you're staring at it, you're like, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah.
Like, my first job with my homie Jose, we both got the job together. We both started the exact same day.
Wow.
And maybe like 2 months later, they're like, this is a job you guys gotta do. And no one was willing to kind of like show us the ropes, like understand how something works and what are the limitations of things we can or can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, the first job we did, we costed $35,000 in damage.
Oh my God. That's nuts, dude.
And it was just like, we ended up not getting in trouble for it because someone advocated for us.
Right.
And they were like, well, you guys didn't want to do this job and you just passed it on until you guys passed it on to our apprentices.
Right.
And then you didn't even bother to like watch them or guide them.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm grateful for that guy because he's one of my dad's longest friends, but he like really advocated for me and my friend. And he was just like, you guys aren't here to teach. You guys are just here to pass work on to the new guys.
Totally.
But being in the aviation industry, I should have known. Like, my dad told me, he gave me those warnings, right?
Yeah.
But that was the thing. He always just said, get a job that you work less, make more.
Mm-hmm.
And then it wasn't until I started Legal Hustle. So I started Legal Hustle when I was working in aviation.
Okay, so you were like doing it as a side hustle while you're doing aviation.
Yeah, because at that time too, like at 21, I was making decent coin. I was still living with my parents. No debts, nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like simple shit to pay for, your insurance, your car, your cell phone bill, right? But I was like making decent coin, and then I met my old business partner Jeremy through dance. You know, so I was like, I've been a dancer forever, man.
Right.
And I was always in the hip hop and dance community, and I was very into style and fashion. So I grew up on basketball. I grew up on b-boying and dance. And then fashion was just there. Like, I always loved sneakers because, you know, when you play ball, you got to have sneakers, right? When you're on a dance floor, you still got to look fresh. So one of my things was always like, it was all about looking fresh from head to toe. And like, I embody that to this day, you know, like I might change my style a little bit here and there. But yeah, like it was just, I met Jeremy through dance, and then I was like, yo, you're doing all these dope graphics for your dance crew, and like I want to start a clothing brand, and I have my dance crew. And it was at the time when like all these dance crews in the city were coming together. And now it's like there's like one big crew, right?
Yeah.
So it was just like, I was like, yo, let's just do something together. I was like, I have this amount of money. And then he was like, yeah, I got my student loans because he was at my Royal.
So like for you, like when it was, you're at your job, you hate it, right?
Yeah.
And you're doing this thing on the side, and you're like, this is your dream, this is your real passion, this is what's really like who you are, the whole work less, make more mentality.
Yeah.
Like when did you decide to like, yo, I'm out of aviation, I'm going to go all in on Legal Hustle? Or like, what's that journey?
I went back to school.
Oh,
that
word.
same year. So when I was 21, got that job.
Yeah.
I worked for them up until maybe I was 22. But I went back to school. So I would go to school. After school, I would have to work after hours at the hangar.
Wow.
So I was working by myself. But the jobs that they gave me were just things that I could do on my own.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the agreement that we had. But at the same time, like, man, I can't do this. Like, I don't even want to do this.
Yeah.
You know, so I talked to my dad about it. I'm like, I don't like it.
Yep.
And he's like,
Yeah, I knew it.
I told you. You know what I mean? Like, I told you. But he still took me in, so I started working for him while I was in school.
Right.
So for the 3 years that I did at SAIT, because it was a 2-year program for business, but then I kind of stretched it out because the first semester was all school, like no work.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I can't live off of this. After you make a little bit of coin, you just, you have to figure out a way to make money. And I was still club promoting.
Yeah.
Cause I started club promoting when I was 18. And that was okay.
Yeah.
But I just wanted more, especially as a sneaker collector.
Of course,
how the fuck am I gonna buy my shoes if like I don't have money?
100.
So I worked with my dad for a bit. I also worked at Champs, but then I was also, pushing the clothing company.
Yeah. That's crazy, dude. That's a lot.
Legal hustle.
That's
you know what I mean? Like there was a point I was working 6 jobs because I worked for the Aldo company. And my position within the Aldo company at one point, I was working for Spring Shoes. I was working for Feet First. I was working for Local, which was Feet First turning into Local, and then now Little Burgundy.
Right.
So I was working for those stores, and I was just being passed around. And I was working for Foot Locker.
Yeah.
And I was working in aviation, and I was working doing Legal Hustle.
Right.
So there's like all these things that I was doing. And then the company name didn't stick with me until one of my friends was like, yo, you're on that Legal Hustle. And I was like, holy shit, you just use that in a fucking verb.
Yeah.
Like you're telling me I'm doing it. So in my mind, I was like, yo, so I'm making it a positive thing. So let's keep fucking doing this shit. So that's how it kind of came where I finalized it as Legal Hustle. But yeah, just kind of like going back to your question with like going through everything, that whole work less, make more. What he really meant by that, when my dad said that to me, was work less so you have more time for your friends and family.
Yeah.
The money will come, but he didn't say that to me. So I understood it as I got older, where I was like, yo, you do work less because you're happy at what you do.
Yeah.
Like my dad worked hours, man. He would work at Air Canada and then like moonlight at another company at night just because he fucking loved what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he was never tired. And he would still wake my dumb ass up if I missed the bus and drive me to school and then sleep for a bit, only for him to go back to work. And then, if he has to work a night shift somewhere. But I understood after a while, like as I was in college, I was like, holy shit. Like, and I had my girl already at this time too, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was an eye opener, because then I remember saying it to him. I was like, you meant fucking work less by being happy with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And getting paid for it. And then you have all this time 100%. For your friends and family. So that was like where a lot of the things like started clicking in my head.
Yeah, I love that shift, right? Because, when you're looking for a career, you're generally like going to school, you're like, oh, what am I going to take or whatever. And when you're making that decision, it's kind of like, okay, how much money does this make? Or like, how much am I going to get from this? But, a question that I've asked myself lately that kind of brought me to kind of the decisions I've been making lately is like, what do I want my contribution to be to the world?
Yeah.
Rather than like, what can I take from this job or get from this thing? It's like, what do I actually want like my contribution to be, right? And like for you, it's like, changing the paradigms of like hustle culture into something positive, because, coming from the Northeast, you see a lot of the negative aspects of that. And then so like, that's brought you here to like this full life of actually doing the things that you want to do, right? Which is blessed. Yeah.
And like, I love saying this because I know it's true, but if it wasn't for Legal Hustle, the name, nobody would be using hustle in the city. And I will proudly say that because over 10 years ago, when you incorporate a business, and that's the thing, people don't know what it's like to actually start a business or even start a clothing company. Like a lot of people thought I was just doing shit under the table. Yo, I'm an incorporated business. Like I pay my taxes, I do all this shit. 100%. You know what I mean? So before I even registered Legal Hustle, which you have to do is called a nuance check. So you can go to I went to AMA. I think at the time I paid like $50.
Yeah.
They ask you, what's the company name that you want? So I put Legal Hustle Clothing, and they give you all the names of the companies within your province.
Yeah.
That your province, and I think they also gave it to me in the nation. Like for Canada. And it was like, these are all the company names that are similar to what you're thinking of having. And no one had the word hustle, especially here in Calgary.
Wow.
No one was even using the word hustle. And I didn't understand that, because when I played sports, my coach used to always say hustle, like hustle for the ball, hustle for this. And it was like, why is it that we're only using it in a positive connotation at this point?
Right.
But like, why can't I say I'm a hustler at school as a student and working? You know, or like, I had friends that had kids in high school and they were hustling. Yeah. But like, why weren't we calling them hustlers? You know, like we just said they were working hard or grinding or whatever the fucking key word was at that time in like the rap. I'll say like the rap game, whoever said whatever, you know? But yeah, I remember doing a Nuance track and no one had the word hustle. There was no word hustle anywhere. So when me and Jeremy came out, man, we got dogged on a lot. I remember some people telling us like, yo, like Legal Hustle's weird. It's like a kid name. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a kid name then. That's your perspective. Right. But I was like, you have to look deeper into it. And then when I explained it to them, they're like, oh shit, respect, bro. Yeah. Like, that's a dope story. I was like, exactly. You got to look at the story that I'm not just building, but you're also building. You know, like, you're a hustler at a 9 to 5. You're a hustler doing whatever, you know what I mean? And it's like, what gave us that motion that it was negative? Yeah. You know, like, obviously I get it. Like rap, hip hop, right? All that stuff that we kind of grew up with, but I loved it, you know, and I was trying to find a way to make it different.
Yeah, man. And where my mind goes when I hear that story is like, you know, we have these dreams or these projects that we want to pursue, and like one of the things that stops us is just other people's opinions. Yeah. Like, you know, somebody else might just hear that and like hear that criticism to their name and be like, oh, this sucks, I'm gonna change the name of this, or I'm gonna like totally shift that. Were you always able to like swerve criticism and stuff and be confident in your ideas, or what was that process like for you to become that, or to be more confident in your shit despite what other people are saying about it?
Yo, I think that's such a dope question. I've never actually been asked that before. Yeah. But it made me just think back, like one of my dance names is Styles. I used to go by B-Boy Styles. I used to go by Flip Styles, but then I just kept it as Styles as I got older. And my name Styles kind of matched me. The way I danced I wasn't just a B-Boy. I was doing choreography. I'm one of the pioneers here in Western Canada for the Crump movement in Canada. So like I was just doing a lot of things. Like I had a lot of styles that I didn't dance, but I was also in love with fashion and sneakers and streetwear. So I was always styling. So like my name Styles was given to, I forgot which one of my homies growing up, but they're like, yo, your name is, at first he's like, you're Flip Styles. And then when we got into b-boying, we all like got into a crew together and we were called Ill Techniques way back in high school.
I think I remember that name. Sounds familiar.
But like, we went by Ill Techniques, and they changed my name to B-Boy Styles. And then as I got older and I was kind of like moving away from the B-Boy world and just getting into, I just want to say dance as in general. And then before getting into Crump, I dropped B-Boy and just became Styles. And I remember people making fun of that name. Yeah. So it was like, I felt like I stayed true to a lot of my shit. I like did whatever I could to stay true to who I was. So when people were dogging on Legal Hustle, like it didn't phase, like it phased me, but it didn't. Some of the things that people said, like some of the homies were even saying shit. Yeah. You know, but at that time, like no one understood, you know what I mean? No one understands what was going in my mind, right? Like why I came up with it. And again, it's just like, when you tell the story of how the business came to be, like the name, then people are like, oh, right, like I like that story. You know, it makes me think and it makes me feel good about hustling, like the shit that I'm doing. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't just about us. Like as much as I love graphic tees and I love dropping some dope ass looks and seeing people look dope in the stuff that we make and putting their own style into it, it was like everyone is building their story, and we're building a brand off your backs and our backs.
Yeah.
And this is our way of sharing it with a community. So we built a small community with Legal Hustle with that, which was great. Like it, you know, the dance community was great with it. And then, you know, it helped with Legal Hustle. And then at the same time, it also helped with the creation of YYC Soldiers.
Right. Yeah. Because you're transitioning into that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Before we get into that though, man, like I just want to, you know, comment on what you just said about that, right? Like, I guess, yeah, you have a vision. And when you first start out, like, it feels like people are judging your entire vision, but really they're just judging your first step. Like they're judging like the first move that you made, and they don't know what it's going to be like. And maybe those people might change their mind once you're actually executing and doing your thing and going on that journey, and you actually will end up building a community. But at the beginning, it might just be like, that's stupid, because they can't see what you're building. You know what I mean? And ultimately, like, from what I'm getting from what you said, man, is like, it low-key did bother you still, but it didn't stop you from doing the thing. You know, I think too many people let that feeling of like, oh, I'm embarrassed, or I feel stupid, or this person thinks it's stupid, so I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to stop. Yeah. But like, you just do it anyway. Like, even for me, people will come up to me and they'll say like, Nick, I think what you're doing is so cool. But like, for me, man, before I post stuff, I'm like, mad doubt. Yeah,
man. You get like, that imposter syndrome.
Exactly, dude.
Like that shit hits hard. I still get that to this day when I was making YouTube videos, like just doing a product review on, say, a new machine that I got. Yeah. Like I was scared to put it out there because there's all these crafting moms doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. But I also looked at it for for example, like my YouTube videos. There's no crafting dads or crafting dudes that are out there. Yeah. You know, there's not a lot of us anyways. Like a lot of the ones that I know I've talked to. Yeah. But yeah, it's like the initial step that, you know, if you introduce something to the world that's new, you get ragged on for a minute.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing too. Like what I realized is it's almost a signal that I'm going in the right direction. Like, it's like, the things that we're insecure about or afraid to share with the world are the exact things that we have to. Yeah. And that's actually the thing that people are attracted to, because there's going to be, maybe there's crafting dads out there who, when they find your content, they'll be like, oh man, that's me too. This guy represents me. This is awesome. And like, however many people that is, it doesn't really matter. It's like, community is community, you know? It doesn't have to be like huge or anything. It's just what it is.
Exactly. And it's definitely one of those things, like imposter syndrome will always be there. Yeah. No matter what. Like I said, even when I was coming down here and I was like thinking about the podcast, because I haven't done a podcast in years. Yeah. That I was, you know, like that I was just being a part of. You know what I mean? Like I've held stuff with my own shit, but you know, even just thinking about like, what do I say? What do I, you know, like it got me nervous, but at the same time, like, what the fuck, man? Like me and Nick, we know each other from all these avenues. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter, because we can just be authentic with what we're doing. 100%. You know, and regardless, there's people that are going to love us, and there's always going to be people that are going to hate what we do. Right?
100%, dude. And like, I think it's a core need or a core want for us to like, for people in general to like be accepted or loved or whatever. And like, you're never actually going to be accepted or loved if you don't show up as yourself. Yeah. Like if you're showing up as like some avatar or some thing that you want people to like, and people like that, it's gonna mean nothing to you anyway, man. Like,
yeah, you're gonna go home empty.
Exactly. Doesn't it feel good when you're actually vulnerable with somebody and you're like, oh man, this is actually who I am, and they're like, they give you love and like, hey, cool, man, that's okay, or like, dude, I really love that about what you're doing. Like, that's actual love. Yeah. But people will settle for being liked, so they're just trying to get likes or be liked by people.
Exactly. You know? And it's crazy, because I was just telling my wife this, but like me and my wife go back and forth with a lot of this stuff, because she's a bookworm. She calls herself a book nerd, but like she has a huge library of books.
I love that.
And she reads a lot, and it gets me inspired to read more. I suck at reading though. Like, fair. But she'll read like a big book in like a week and a half. Yeah. And I'll try to read a little book, and it'll take me like 6 months. She's like, you're not done yet? I'm like, nah. Like,
I'm a slow reader too.
Yeah, like I get caught up with things, and sometimes like I'll start reading and I'll just fall asleep, you know what I mean? But I was talking to her about this stuff, So she talked to me about how she's such a book nerd, and I'm like, I'm a wrestling nerd.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you've seen my posts of like my action figures and like me posting about wrestling or even t-shirts that I make with wrestlers on it and stuff. But that was, so going back to, you know, like, how do you push through a lot of these things? That's the one thing I didn't push through with. Like, especially getting into high school, I loved wrestling.
Yeah.
But I was like a closet wrestling fan.
Right.
Like, you didn't really want to show it.
Yeah.
When I felt like I didn't want to show it anymore, and I didn't want to buy action figures anymore, because it's like, what are you doing playing with toys? You know what I mean? And it was one of those things where I wish I didn't let that go. Like, I kept everything else. I had the sneakers. I was super into sneakers.
Yeah.
I was super into fashion. And, like, people made fun of the shit that I was even wearing sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that didn't faze me, because I was just like, I'm fucking Styles. You know what I mean? Like, you know my name. You know what I'm going to come and look like. So whatever you say, you know I'm Styles. And you, regardless, is going to be fresh to somebody else, right? But that was the one thing I didn't push through. And I was talking to my wife about this just a bit ago, where I was like, man, like, I'm like very happy to have like my guys and YYC soldiers that are also wrestling fans.
Dope.
And like, especially with Adam, my business partner, and Andrew Fung. And like, we just have like the three of us have a group chat sending each other pictures of action figures.
I love that.
You know, and it was just one of these things where I'm like, man, like, I really wish I just stayed true to myself as like a wrestling fan and an avid toy collector, where I didn't care what other people thought about me collecting shit like that. Because it was just, because now when I look at my son, I'm just like, yo, this is the stuff that I was into, and whatever you're into, like, I'm down to learn about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when he was into Paw Patrol, I was Paw Patrol all the way. You know what I mean? When he was into Blippi, I was like into Blippi. And, you know, like, he's into like the Wiggles right now, which is crazy, because I remember growing up with the Wiggles. But he's like super into the Wiggles, and I'm into it. You know, like, me and my wife love sharing with him, but we also want to kind of teach him that being authentic is being authentic 100%. If you love a certain thing, if you love a certain look or whatever it is, like, stay true to that.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing I feel like I faulted myself on, was not being true. And it's not until just, you know, a couple years ago, I started collecting action figures again. Because I was just like, oh, I got gifted a Bret Hart action figure from Blade, which is Bret's youngest son.
Yeah, like Bret Hart, Hitman Hart, right? Like, he's from Calgary, right?
Yeah, so Blade invited me over to his dad's house.
Crazy.
And, you know, he kind of just took me on a tour, and he showed me, he was like, oh, you like action figures? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, take this and take this action figure. And then that's how my love for wrestling and action figures like fucking blossomed again. And then talking to Andrew Fung and talking to my homie Jermaine and Adam, and like seeing how they were super into wrestling. Yeah. And Andrew has a crazy like belt collection. And it was just like, man, like, I really wish I stayed authentic. Yeah. You know, but when you're young, you don't really know. You just, you want to impress, right? Yeah, it's all about the likes.
Yeah, you want to get liked. You want to be liked.
Yeah.
But what you really want is to be loved. And to be loved, you got to be yourself, right?
Exactly.
But like, I love that journey, because it's never too late. It's never too late to pick it up, you know? Like, I was super into martial arts as a kid, like, immediately. Like, there's photos of me like doing kung fu kicks and stuff like at 3.
Oh,
you know?
dope.
Yeah, and you know, when I was growing up though, like, I just got straight up made fun of for that. You know, I was in martial arts and for a little bit, and you know, it was just like kind of like the stereotype kung fu Asian guy thing, and I just totally just like got rid of that. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. Same with singing, man. Like, it's crazy that you have like music with my name on it and stuff, and that's crazy to me. But like, you know, there was a time where I was super insecure and self-conscious about those things, but like, you know, later on in life I pick it up. Like, I train martial arts now as an adult, and
dude,
like,
it's never too late.
It's never too late, man. Like, I think we, like, a lot of people have a bad relationship with time and age, you know what I mean? Like, at this point I'm 30, and I used to think 30 was like old. Yeah. But now, like, I'm 30 now, and I feel so young. I feel like the
Bro,
same
I'm
as I did when I was
excited for
20.
40, man.
Yeah.
Everyone that I know that's in their 40s are like, 40 is when life starts.
100%.
And I'm like, yo, that sounds so dope. Like, I'm excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, man, it was like just going back on us, just, you know, putting on, like, it's weird that we have a thing these days, or the way we kind of grew up, where, you know, by 24 you should be married, by 28 you should have kids. And I think that fucked a lot of us up.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, even with just like buying a house, people like, by this age you should buy a house and you need to stop renting. And it's like, but maybe you don't need to. You know, like, why can't we just normalize renting?
Yeah.
Or normalize like buying a house whenever you're financially set, or you're actually ready. I find that, you know, growing up, everyone kept just saying, yeah, you know, we gotta make sure we do this and get married. And I don't think I ever put a cap on it.
Yeah.
I like listened, and there were times in life where I was like, man, like, what the fuck? You know, I'm like this age now and I should have $1 million in my bank account.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, at you know, at 17 we were all like, by 26 I'll probably have $1 million. You know.
Yeah, everybody thinks that.
Yeah, there's like all these, like, by this age I'm gonna have a G-Wagon.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to JD about this today, but just like, even when you have the money to buy a G-Wagon or whatever it is, when you get to a certain age, you're like, do I need it?
Exactly.
Like, is it to show everyone that I made it?
100%. And there you go again, right? Like, it's like people's perceptions can like affect the decisions you make with your life, and you have to live your life, man.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, I've been there looking at other people's lives and comparing my life to theirs and be like, oh, I should be where they are.
Yeah.
But man, that just shrinks you. That like shrinks your path. Like, and like, I'm a spiritual person, so I believe like all these little things are just like hints to our path in life. Like the fact that you love wrestling, and like you're into like fashion and dancing and whatever you're into is like all clues for you to live your destiny, man.
Yeah.
You know, and when we look at other people's lives or try to fit into the cookie cutter thing, like we stop giving our gift, man. We stop being in that place. And that's when I think, you know, you were talking about this earlier, but that's when I think like you start feeling like you're forcing life instead of like life falling into place and things like having synchronicity and like divine timing in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's like, we grew up with hustle culture. And I've posted this before in one of my stories where I was like, I was promoting hustle culture, but that shit killed me.
Yeah.
That, like, I was following the wrong people on social media, and I was like comparing myself with like a fucking 40-year-old dude that has a team running everything for him, and he's just the fucking face of the cameras.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I fucking fell into that shit, and I was all about grinding and hustling and sleep when you're dead, all this bullshit. Bro, and in all honesty and reality of like looking at the perspective of just legal hustle itself, that's what made me fall out of love with the brand. To a point. Like, I love legal hustle for what it did for me as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, at the age of 20, it got me into the industry that I wanted to be a part of, and I'm still a part of to this day. And it really opened a lot of doors for me, you know, from meeting Bobby Hundreds, meeting some of the guys from Crooks and Castles. Like, these are like my idols. You know what I mean? Like, meeting Ben Hundreds, meeting Johnny Cupcake, meeting Mark Echo, like Echo Clothing. You know, I grew up seeing that shit. And to meet Mark Echo was just like mind blowing, and to learn from a lot of these people, like even meeting Jeff Staple. I met Jeff Staple. I've met Tinker Hatfield. I've learned from a lot of these guys. But I was so young and so dumb. But it was because I surrounded myself with not even the people around me, but just the shit I was looking at on my phone. Yeah. You know, whether it be a Gary Vee, or whether it be, you know, like another entrepreneur, you know, and the thing that I failed to realize was these guys they're a lot older than me. They've made a lot more mistakes than me. Yeah. They've done a lot more than I have in my lifetime. But they also have a team now that runs shit for them.
Mm-hmm.
And with Legal Hustle, I was just when I bought out my business partner and when we just ended things, and it was just me on my own. Like I was doing everything from the graphics to the marketing to like putting stuff out. The only thing I maybe did, I hired someone, was like taking photos for me because I just don't have that eye for it. Right. And I understood that I don't have that eye for it. Mm-hmm. I might have an eye for it now because I take photos of what I like and it just works out for me kind of thing. But hustle culture is fucked. It's fucked, man. And I was an advocate for it, and I was telling people, and I was telling kids, and when I would do talks at SAID, I was like, you gotta grind and this, and this. Mm-hmm. But when you get older, you look back and it's just like, yo, did I enjoy doing all that grinding? Yeah. Like, it looks cool on social media. You're up at fucking 3 o'clock in the morning designing a t-shirt. Mm-hmm. And by 6 o'clock in the morning, I'll hold the t-shirt up saying I made it. But did you love every single process of that? Yeah. And when people say trust the process, it's true. Trust the process. Like, yeah, like hustle culture brought me to a certain point, but it also brought me to a point where I hated looking at my own brand at one point. Yeah. And that's like for me now, as much as I love Legal Hustle, it's not my main focus anymore. Yeah. I'll still do a t-shirt here and there, but there's just something that I like worked so hard and grinded so hard that grind doesn't love you back.
Bro, I can relate so much to that, man. Cause like, it's the same thing. I'm consuming all of this stuff of like these like 20-year-old entrepreneurs that just made it or something, or like, yeah, maybe they're 40 or 50 or whatever they are. And like, what I realized was like, yeah, it started as this thing where like, oh, I love this, so I better put all my energy into it. But then when I really looked at it, what I realized was this hustle that I was doing came from a place of just not enoughness. Like looking at myself in the mirror and being like, you're not enough. So you better work your ass off to be enough. You better prove that you're enough by like this bag you made. Exactly. Or by like this accomplishment that you can show to people. And like, what I began to realize was like, yeah, it's about the process. It's about like, did I show up for myself today? Did I do the thing? Okay, cool. Like just like a plant, right? Like if you're taking care of a plant, you give it water, you give it sun, you make sure the soil is good. But if you keep watering that plant just like cuz like it's going to die, bro. Yeah. And that's the same thing, like just being like, I nurtured this today and then I trust what the outcome's gonna be, because a lot of the hustle is like, I don't trust this, bro. Yeah, I better do like every single thing in my power to do this, because I'm not gonna make it if I don't. Yeah. And if I don't do this, then I'm not enough, and then I can't be loved, or whatever the thing is, right?
And people are gonna think I fell off and this and that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Especially the naysayers, I would say shit. Yeah, exactly. They want you to fuck up so they could be like, yo, I told you, man, that shit wasn't gonna work out. Yeah. But I mean, that's like 1 in a million thing that can get fucked up. Mm-hmm. You know. I just saw this podcast called it's on Idea Generation. Yeah. Hosted by Noah, who is also from Complex NCB, and he had Scooter Braun. Okay. Justin Bieber's manager. Yeah, yeah. And he asked him the same thing about hustle culture. Mm-hmm. And I just heard this yesterday. Yeah. Even before coming here, and Noah was like, so we grew up in an era about hustle culture, and I was like, fuck, I should bring this shit up too. Yeah, yeah. Because we grew up in that same era, but we were like the tail end of these guys. Right. But now if you look at the world, it's so crazy that there was a point in life where we're like, go, rest when we die. We got to compete with ourselves, mm-hmm. and we got to fucking prove it to ourselves with like all the success, all our fucking cars, our houses, this, whatever the investments are that we get through all this hustling. And that's how we prove our success to other people. Yeah. Right. And how fucked is it to think we were doing things for other people. Exactly. That don't even give a fuck about you. Yeah. That are actually like hoping you lose. Exactly. And then Scooter was just like, yeah. And nowadays you look at life, you'll watch a Gatorade commercial. And maybe if you look at Gatorade 10 years ago, it was like, the grind doesn't stop, whatever. Right. But now it's like, pause, balance, breathe. Right. You know, like the generation now is learning about balance and how to go to sleep, how to turn off at night, mm-hmm. because people that are especially entrepreneurs and creatives in general, like our minds run forever.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be making a song, producing a beat, you know, making a t-shirt or an idea for an upstart or a startup company. You know, like we're always like, you'll go to sleep and we're always thinking about these things, and sometimes it's hard to shut off. But the hardest thing to do is to just completely meditate or balance, or just like shut your mind off of whatever your phone is telling you, whatever your computer is telling you, or whatever other people are telling you of how to do things. You should do this, you should do that, right? But yeah, it's just crazy to think that we were so embodied with hustle culture, and we embraced it so hard.
Yeah, man. And like for me, it's like I told myself a story where it's like I will have peace when I achieve the thing. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas like what you're saying is like you can find peace right now. Like you can find balance and peace right now, and like even in the midst of it, you haven't reached all your goals yet. That's fine. You can still be at peace.
Yeah.
But I was telling myself the story is like, I'll be at peace when I get this done, and I'll be at peace once I get this job, or I'll be at peace once I do this thing. And it's like, but then you do the thing, and then you're not at peace because there's the next thing that you got to do. You know what I mean?
Bro, I had a quote, and I used to like post this on Legal Hustle's Instagram like every couple months, but it was like hustle now, sleep later. And I look at it now, I'm like, what the fuck were you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, there was a point for maybe like a good 10 years where I was maybe getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And I was like, before having my son, I was a 5 a.m. guy. No matter what time I slept at, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym.
Yeah.
To get up at 5 a.m., either go to the gym, go home, take a shower, do a bit of my hustle, my work, go to work, come back home, you know, do the same shit again, grind, go to sleep, wake up.
It's unsustainable, bro.
And that's the thing, like a lot of people literally were dying off that because of exhaustion, of stress, you know, and that's how it puts you in a fucked up mentality sometimes, and that's how a lot of people end up dying by suicide, because they're trying to do things without the balance anymore, because we're just taught to just push, but we were never really taught to just chill.
Yeah, dude, it's such an interesting thing for me because like I've been trying to seek balance for a long time. I've never been able to strike it. I always feel like there's something that suffers when I'm trying to balance out my life, and like it's weird for me because I also feel like everything in life is connected.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, oh, I'm trying to balance my mental health and my physical health. Well, your mental health's gonna be better if you're taking care of your body.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, oh, well, I want to like balance my inner peace and like my money situation. Well, you're probably going to be at more peace if like you can pay your bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like
it pulls, it's always pulling. There's something always pulling. And I think that's where life comes in, and we'll never have a balance.
Exactly.
But we can control what we stress about, what we are worried about, or even just like, just sitting here and, you know, us talking, you know, it's good for our mental health.
100%.
Right? Even just like, just sitting and staring at the ceiling, you know, like, sometimes I see my son and he'll just be like, instead of watching TV, he'll just like lay on our couch, grab his blanket, and he's not tired, but he'll just lay there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, nah, just relaxing.
Yeah.
Like not thinking about anything. He's chilling.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
We have so much to learn from kids, bro.
Bro, 100%, man. And that's where my life literally changed, was like after having our son, I like looked at him and I'm just like, you're a person. Like you're my kin. You're like my heart. You know what I mean? You're my, not even, it's like beyond blood. It was just like, there's more to life than what I'm doing. You know, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying about, you know, what you do now is setting you up for something else or for your legacy.
Right.
And for me, the way I look at life now is, I don't care if Carter is into streetwear. I don't care if he's into wrestling or sneakers or whatever. I'll share my passions with him, but I will never push it on him. I will never push him to be a dancer.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things where when we had him, I was like, I don't want him to be a dancer. I don't want him to get into dance. Because I just understand. I know what the industry is like.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, when your parents are both dancers and we're at home and we're just like playing music and we're just freestyling together,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to pick something up and he loves it. And that's like so blessed because I look at it and I'm like, damn, love it.
Mm-hmm.
Be you, be authentic. Again, going back to being authentic again. But now for me, I could have all these accolades, but they do nothing for my son. They do nothing for my family. But the only thing I think about is, you know, for him to look at it and be like, yo, my dad did this. Like, I want to do my own thing and be authentic with what I do and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of like where my journey in life now, in whatever I'm doing, is just kind of like, I don't care about what other people think anymore, because his mind about me is bigger than what anybody else can think.
I love that.
Whether
bro.
I'm in a dance battle and people are like, oh, your foundations or this and that are not like here or there.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck. You see my son getting hyped for me?
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if my son gets hyped for me, my wife gets hyped for me, and I get hyped for her, and she gets hyped for him, and like we're hyped as a family, as a unit, and we're moving as a team, like that matters more to me than all the awards I would get, all the features I've had in magazines or being on TV or whatever it is, right? Like, I want my son to look at this podcast one day and be like, yo, my dad, like how I talked about my dad was like cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a dope ass dad that did what he wanted to do, like stayed true to who he was and didn't give a fuck what anybody else said. And I want him to grow up like that. I want him to just be authentic, because at the end of the day, life is not going to be life if you're not authentic. And if you're not being authentic to yourself, yo, that's when people say earth is like living in hell. Because if you're not who you are and you're not doing what you're passionate about, or even just like advocating for what you're passionate about, you know, like you can have a 9-to-5 and everything, but after your 9-to-5, like if you're passionate about knitting and you're in knitting clubs and you're showing everyone your work and that's what makes you feel alive, yo, you don't live in hell.
Straight up.
Like the world's a hard place. And there's so many things all of us can do. But at the end of the day, I think all of us just have to really be authentic and true to who we are, and like love whatever we love, and be passionate about whatever we're passionate about. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's our life and it's us living it, right?
100%, bro. I love that. I love that so much, because like, yeah, life would be a hell if you're not yourself, right? Like, because then you're in the jail of a character you made. Like, you're like, oh, I'm this person, or I have to be this person. And that's just jail. That's not freedom, you know? Yeah. And like, I love that the way you described your relationship with your son. Like, there's nothing that you need to push him to be. It's just like nurturing who he actually is. And that's the same thing with our inner child. You know what I mean? Because like, we have to just nurture who we actually are, whether that's like, oh, I love wrestling, or I love martial arts, or whatever that thing is. It's like, but there's always that pressure to be like, no, I should be this because this is what is successful. Oh, I should be this because this is what is desirable. But really the journey is like nurturing who you actually are, just like your journey with your son is nurturing who he actually is, you know? Yeah.
It's all about just being yourself, right? At the end of the day. And everyone talks about being authentic. They talk about their values, but a lot of people don't live their shit.
100%.
Right? So with that, like, I can leave as many legacies as I can. My wife can do the same thing. Our son can see all the work that we've done in the community. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't do anything for him. The only thing that I think it would do is just inspire him to do what he wants to do, and not necessarily have to follow in our footsteps. He doesn't have to be a dancer. He doesn't have to be an entrepreneur. He doesn't have to be a writer, because my wife is a writer. Like, whatever he wants to do, like, yo, we got your back 100%. You know, and like going back to what I was saying about like being on podcasts and TV and shit, like I'd love for my son at one point in life to to pull this podcast up and like look at the camera or look at the screen, and he's like, yo, my dad talked about me.
Yeah.
And he really pushed me to just be myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that's something it's hard to do as a parent, because sometimes you want to mold. But with kids, like when they're born, they already have something.
Yeah.
You just don't know what it is. And they're the ones teaching us like what and who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think we've come to a point in life where our parents were kind of a little strict on us.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they had a hard life when they immigrated here and all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, their parents had a hard life immigrating and that's all they knew. And then, you know, it kind of continued on. But I feel like in our life now, in our generation, we're able to understand that what we grew up with, a lot of it could have been traumas. And it did affect a lot of us, but now like we understand that.
Yeah.
And it's up for us now to like break a lot of these cycles and introduce a different world to our kids.
100%. And like, dude, no matter how hard you try or how like good you try to be, your kids are going to have traumas, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be something they're going to take, because, you know, this is a saying that I heard about trauma, which is like, trauma isn't the thing that happened to you. Trauma is the story you tell about the thing that happened to you.
Yeah.
You know, so, and at the end of the day, like you were saying earlier, like the traumas are just a way for us to learn about ourselves and become the people we are. So that's blessed, man.
Yeah. And it, like, for me, I knew, but I didn't really fully understand it until I started taking therapy. And like, honestly, I think everybody needs to go to therapy.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things you can do. And it's not an embarrassing thing,
Mm-hmm.
but the way some of us grew up, it's like, you can't be weak, especially as boys or as men.
Right.
Like, we're not allowed to be sad, or, you know, people would say, you can't be sad, don't be sad. Like, there's nothing to be sad about. Look at what you have, look at where you live, or whatever it is.
Right.
But we're only humans, man, and our bodies can only take so much. It's like shaking a can of pop. And at a certain point, someone's going to open it. Someone's going to talk to us to open us up, and then we're going to just explode with like feelings and tears and anger, happiness, sadness, like whatever it is. Like, we're going to explode at one point. And for me, like, I didn't get into therapy. And in all honesty, I haven't been to therapy in a long time.
Yeah.
In like a couple, like maybe in a month or two. But like, I didn't go into therapy until we had our first miscarriage, which was just a couple months ago. And for me, like, I didn't even understand why I am the way I am. And it wasn't actually necessarily because of my parents. Like, the reason why I did everything on my own, whether it be dance or sneakers or streetwear, like even the way I ran a business, like doing everything on my own. And my therapist kind of broke this down for me. She was like, so there's things that happened to me as a kid where, you know, the reason why I got hit with so much trauma when we had our miscarriage is because at the age of 10, my sister had a stillborn. So she lost her first child, like while giving birth. Like, full term, everything was good up until, you know, she gave birth. And there were things that happened where we ended up losing my niece. And at the age of 10, it really fucked me up because I was a pallbearer. I was a pallbearer at the age of 10. Like, carrying a casket at that age, especially even if it's a baby, I remember how heavy it was. I was like holding that shit with two hands.
Wow.
And there's even pictures that I have where I'm like, I wasn't crying at the funeral, but I remember just staring, and I was like trying to comprehend death. Like, I didn't understand death. I didn't understand the logistics, but I had the why. Like, why everything was good up until that point. Why did we lose her?
Yeah.
You know? I don't know if I know the complete story. I've kind of just like, as a kid, I just, you know, when parents are talking to like my sister, and I kind of eavesdropped a little bit and talking to my brother-in-law, but I don't really know. I kind of just speculate what I've heard.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we had our miscarriage, it took me out for a bit. It was like, it like brought back a lot of things from when I was 10 years old at the age of 32, and it hit me so hard. And then I got into therapy, and growing up, like I would have meltdowns where I would think about my niece, you know, at different stages in life. I was maybe like 12 or 13 or whatever. And like I was hitting depression at a young age. And I still hit certain points of depression now as an adult, but I know when it's coming, I know what it feels like, and I know how to, like, not really prevent it, but I know how to go through the motion of it, but also learning how to speak to my wife about it. Like when something is really like getting to me, like I know how to open up. When I was younger, I didn't know. I was like scared.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want my parents to worry. I didn't want to tell my friends because like they don't, like we're fucking kids. Like what the fuck are they going to understand, you know? And you didn't want to be a burden.
100%.
Right?
That's
like,
the biggest thing.
Even now, like sometimes you don't want to tell someone something because you don't want to be a downer. Like maybe they're having the greatest day of your life, and you're just like, yeah, I feel like dying inside right now. But when I did therapy, I talked to my therapist about it, and then I don't remember what we got into, but I was telling her about the things I do with the sneaker community and what I did for dance and streetwear, and how I've been involved with it from such a young age. Like I remember collecting sneakers at the age of 13, but I wasn't getting anything super crazy. I was just getting sneakers to like go in my clothing that I can, you know, make myself look fresh.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until she broke everything down for me. She's like, the reason why you took so long to bring people on a team with you, and invite people to your business, especially with Legal Hustle and By Miles, is because you were saved by these things. It didn't fuck me up when people would talk shit about my sneakers or make fun of my outfits. It didn't do anything to me. Because for me, again, like it goes back to feeling good about myself. And I was alive. But the craziest part was, the thing that really hurt the most, I think, was when I was like, wow, like that, you know, it really brought me down as a human being. And like I was like, these aren't just materialistic things. You know, a lot of people will see it like that, but there was a point in my life where a pair of shoes made me happy because I was depressed. The smell of the shoe, the way I looked in an outfit made me feel good because I was depressed.
Yeah.
I just had this feelings bottled up when I was young, where sometimes you think about suicide, but I knew I wasn't going to go through it because I couldn't do it. You know, like I don't know my mind state anymore at that point. Like that was just one of those things where I kind of blacked it out from life. But when I talked to my therapist, she just said like streetwear, sneakers, and dance, those are the three things you hold tight on because they saved you. Yeah. And that's the reason why, you know, you might have had all this time of like a decade of doing Legal Hustle by yourself. And even when you had a business partner, you were so uptight about it because people didn't understand what it really meant to you. So the part that really killed me when we were talking about it was just like, man, like even just thinking about some of the shit people would say to me, whether it be friends or family members, and no knock at anyone that watches this, but it was just what I was going through as a kid. So if you said any shit, I still love you. But it was just like, everyone kind of said all this shit to me, but no one really knew, like, deep down inside, like, fuck, like, I'm dying right now, guys. And this sneaker or this t-shirt or me going to a dance class really is like, it's keeping me here to be happy with you. But again, no one understood because I also wasn't very open about that. But when my therapist said that, I bursted out crying. Man. I was broke. Like I was broken at that point. And you know, like I said, everyone can talk about sneakers or whatever it is being materialistic, but again, like this is like what kept me in this life. This is what kept me here to meet my wife, to create a son that, you know, one day I hope will just do whatever he wants that betters the world. Because at the end of the day, we're all kind of here for that moment, is to like bring peace and to bring something positive, whether it's materialistic or not, you know?
Dude, 100%. That's like so incredibly profound. And there's so many things in there that like are creating all of these moments for me, like in my mind, and realizations for myself. You know what I mean? Like, just to start off with what you said earlier about like being a man, and like you're told that to be strong is to like not feel your emotions. But when you do that, like it's coming up in ways that you're not aware of, right? Like it's like, oh, the pain's still there, I'm just not dealing with it.
Yeah.
And the strength actually comes from looking at the pain like face to face and being like, oh, here, let me like put this out there and like deal with it. And like I can relate so much to feeling like a burden, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like feeling like whatever I'm going through right now, I don't want to put that on somebody, because like exactly like you said, they could be having the best day or whatever. But
yeah.
Think about when a homie comes to you with something and they're hurting, and you can be there for them. Like how good does that feel?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
You know, like I actually think that when we can share our pain with people, it's a gift to them. It's a gift to people. Like obviously don't like go around telling everybody, but someone you can trust, whether that's a therapist or a really great friend or your wife or whoever that might be, like that's giving them the opportunity to be there for you.
Yeah.
And like that's such a gift. You know what I mean? Like, and man, like there's nothing stronger than being able to look at yourself and the things that you're feeling and actually deal with them and turn it into something positive. You know what I mean? Like, so man, fuck, like grateful that you shared that with me, because like I'm getting so much from that, man. Like I'm actually like truly getting so much from that. So
yeah,
man,
and like I always try to be an open book. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of things in my life where I just feel like people shouldn't know. Obviously, there's like small things here and there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I always promised myself was, again, we're being authentic, right? But being an open book and just being comfortable with like speaking about like not even just facts, just experiences that I've been through. Because, you know, when I posted about going through a miscarriage with my wife back in September, so many dads and guys were texting me or calling me, and they're like, man, like I really went through that too, and like I didn't understand how I should feel.
Yeah.
And I was like, why isn't this a normalized thing for guys? You know, like, why isn't it normal for guys to talk about how sensitive they are? Why isn't it normal for guys to talk about like our feelings, you know? And I get it, like we grew up that way.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, for people that kind of still look at it like, one of the things I always think about is we can only blame traumas for so long in life.
Yeah.
It's like my dog ate my homework the fucking first day of school, and then you say it at the end of the week, my dog ate my homework. Yeah. And you come back on Monday and my dog ate my homework. Like you can only blame something for so long, where if you know that part is messing you up, you know how to correct it. Or you know how to take steps into not even correcting it, but how to live with it, how to grow with it, how to develop from it. And it's like for me with going through depression, like I know the feeling of being heavy. I know the feeling of like shutting down and not knowing like how to feel, how to talk. I remember with me like going through depression, I get cold. Like I get like a cool feeling. I get super heavy in my chest, and I didn't know how to deal with it. Sometimes I would like try to talk, but I wouldn't say what's going on, and it like didn't fix anything, but it was like I knew there was something there.
Yeah.
But I when I got very involved into basketball, into dance, and into like sneakers and fashion, again, like I said, like that's what really made me happy.
Yeah.
And to this day, like it makes me happy. Getting a new pair of shoes is dope. Getting compliments on an outfit. Like I'm not in that version of myself anymore, but it feels good. And that's what I was like, I guess, like yearning for. I wanted those likes.
Right.
But it wasn't like a vanity thing. It was just that it made me feel good. Like
100%.
if I got a new t-shirt, I was excited to wear it. Like the first day of school when you set your fucking outfits out and you're excited to go to school to wear whatever you had. Not trying to stunt because you're just like, yo, I got some fresh shit.
Yeah.
But that's how it was for me. It was just like, it was a constant like excitedness. Not even for other people. Like I'm just excited to wear. I bought this milk run tee today.
Yeah.
And like I was excited to come on the podcast to rock it because JD's our homie.
100.
And like I'm all about supporting my friends. Right. So it's just like I feel good. I'm excited. Like I was excited to support him and to like visit him at the new store and shoot the shit with him for a little bit and talk about what we were doing when we were kids and seeing how we are now, like me as a dad and him as a business owner and everything. So it was like therapy was great. Like I think everybody got to check out therapy. It's if you can, if work has the insurance or the benefits for it, everyone should just take advantage of it because it's just nice to speak to someone.
Yeah.
And it's nice to speak to someone with no bias.
Totally.
Right? Like they listen. They don't give you answers, but they get you to find the answer within your own thoughts and the way you talk. Like I said, I didn't understand myself and how I ran business and why I was so like tight on certain things and why I wouldn't invite people.
Yeah.
With YYC Soldiers, I was lucky enough to like have someone like Andrew Fung that taught me how to be a little bit more open with bringing people on the team. And with YYC Soldiers, it was a little bit easier for me, but I already had someone in the beginning. But all my other businesses, I was just like I was a one-man show.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it. As much as my wife was saying you need to have a team, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't understand why I couldn't.
Man, it's crazy. It's crazy, bro. Like, yeah, to be able to see it as like it was pretty much a life raft for you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this thing brings you joy and happiness and a sense of peace, like when there's so much darkness going on, you know?
Yeah.
And like...
And I didn't understand that darkness. I just knew there was darkness, but I didn't understand.
And that's the exact same thing, right? We can chalk it up to like, that's how we grew up or whatever. But it's like, we didn't have examples of like how to deal with that, right? Because like, I don't know about your dad, but my dad's like a stoic individual. Like he's very rarely emotional, he's a man's man.
Yeah.
And like, so it's a skill you have to learn. Yeah. Right. And you can learn that through therapy, or you can learn that through books, or you can learn that in however way, right?
Exactly.
And like the most powerful thing, man, is like when you are vulnerable and you are able to actually deal with those things, then now you're the example. Now people can look at you and be like, oh, that's how you do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So not only is it like healing you, like now you're a safe space for other people to heal because you know how to deal with that. And you can help someone else do that too. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And it's the crazy part is just like I was saying, people hitting me up and stuff about, how do I feel and sharing stories with me. And I'm like, wow, like you guys have maybe more kids than I do, but you guys have gone through a miscarriage. And regardless if you've been through one miscarriage or, multiple, we all go through the same feeling and everything. And even when I was on another a podcast a couple of years back called Hard as a Mother. And I think I was one of the first dads on the episode, which was like a dope dad episode. And I opened up to the world pretty much about how I went through postpartum depression. Wow. And people don't really know that men go through postpartum, and men don't even know that they go through postpartum. But I talked about it, and I mentioned like I went through postpartum. Like I really got into a dark hole as a new father, and no one knew. My wife didn't know. I didn't want to tell her. Yeah. Until one day I opened up to my my one older cousin, and I was like, yo, I might do something myself right now. Like I don't know what to do. Like I'm stuck. I'm so heavy. Like I'm hitting a depression. I'm getting anxiety right now. Like there's a lot of things that can happen, especially when you're a new parent. Yeah. Not even just for dads, but just parents in general. You're tired, you're exhausted, you don't know what's going on, you're new. No matter how many kids you have, you can still hit this postpartum. I remember hitting my cousin up and I was like, yo, like, I don't know what's going on right now. Like, I can't think, I can't work. I'm like sad, I'm like lost. And I just told him everything. He's like, I've been there. And I was like, you have? And he's like, that's postpartum. Yeah. He's like, you really need to talk to Sen about that. And that same day, I walked into our bedroom because we were living out with my parents at that time. And I walked into our bedroom and I was like, I'm not healthy. I'm going through something right now. I don't know what it is. I know it's depression. I know it's anxiety because it's the same feelings I had when I was younger. Yeah. But it was different because I didn't know how to work with it. So it was like a lot of grinding and no moving. Mm-hmm. And after I opened up about it with her, it felt like the fucking world was off my shoulders. Wow. Because it was like, so I learned this after, but so my wife and I, like my wife didn't have an easy pregnancy. She was actually bedridden for a couple months. Wow. And I felt like I had to take control. I had to make sure she was good. I had to make sure she was eating, make sure, she was comfortable, healthy, whatever she was doing, if she needed help with work or whatever it was. Like I became the caregiver. Yeah. And then when she gave birth, I kept doing the same thing that I forgot we were a team. Mm-hmm. And how I mentioned, like, as my family now, we move as a unit. Like, if you want me, you got to have my total package with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was like, because my mentality was, what do I have to need when I didn't push a baby out? Mm. Like, who am I to ask for help? And that's where a lot of men get fucked up, especially when they're, like I said, when their significant others have a tough pregnancy where they kind of take a lot of the load and they're trying to make sure they're doing everything they can to make sure they're comfortable and the baby's okay and, surviving and all that kind of stuff, that you forget to think about yourself. Yeah. And then when I opened up to my wife about it, she's like, you need to really think about us as a team, because like Kobe didn't do everything by himself. MJ didn't do everything by himself. Well, Braun definitely didn't do everything by himself. So it's just like, you got to think of us as a team, because if you're the only one trying to do something, like, I don't know if you're okay or not. Yeah. And I was like, so hit with that. Like, bro, as I got older, I cry a lot more now.
Bro, me too.
I'll watch a movie and I'll get emotional over it.
Bro, same. I'm the same. I'm getting softer with age.
Yo, me too. Yeah. Like, no matter where you grew up, the older you get, you're going to get, doesn't matter how hard you are. Mm-hmm. Like, you just got to have a heart, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that's powerful. Like, and I bet going through that with your wife has made you guys closer than you've ever been, right?
Oh, 100%, bro.
Yeah. And
like, she's my best friend. You know what I mean? Like, if she's my best friend, like, you tell your best friend everything, mm-hmm. So it's like, definitely did bring us a lot closer, very comfortable. When one of us is feeling off, like, we let each other know. You know what I mean?
I love that.
It's always an open door, mm-hmm. right?
And that's the same thing with me and my partner. We've never been through anything as difficult as that. But the challenges that we have faced has always made us closer together. And that's what real bonds are made from, man. Like, the real bonds are made from hard times. Yeah. Like, even me and my family, like, we've been through a lot of hard things, and that's the things that get us closer together. Whereas everyone's trying to post all the really great moments on social media or whatever. Yeah. Like, the most important moments are the ones that nobody sees. The ones where you're like in the dark together and working through it. You know what I mean?
And like, yo, I gotta give like a shout out to my wife, because like, she's like, like I said in the beginning, she called me out on all my bullshit, and it touched me bad. And I've said this lots of times. I've been very open about it because I'm like, there's no purpose in being proud about that. Like, I'm not scared to show that I was fucking weak.
Yeah.
I was lazy. I'd rather be vulnerable and inspire someone young. Like, if I can go back and give this podcast to the 18, 17-year-old Albert,
Yeah.
and like, you know, he can watch it and be like, I'm inspired, then like, fuck, I did my job. You know what I mean? Like, there's a kid that is me right now that will probably see this one day and be like, whoa, like, he was like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I really got to give a shout out to my wife, because like, she's like, we've been together since I was 19, she was 21, and we've been together like since then. You know what I mean? Like, we've had
amazing.
our breakups here and there, but we, you know, we dated as kids, we dated in our 20s, got married in our late 20s, had our son in 2019.
Wow.
You know, so he's turning 4 this year. But like, we, you know, like, everyone has challenges. It doesn't matter if it's like, if you're married, it doesn't matter if you have kids or you're just starting off. Like, there are going to be challenges, and that's where, you know, like, communication really, really builds a bond together. Like, it's all about moving as a unit. But at the same time as moving as a unit, you also, one of the things that we both learned is like having our own individual lives still. So as much as we're still dancers, she has her thing that makes her happy. I have my thing that makes us happy. And one of the things that we found that was just healthy for us, and I mean, like, you know, everyone can kind of take this as a grain of salt, but you don't have to like everything that they like, and they don't have to like everything you like, and you don't have to do everything together all the time. But as you get older, you'll understand there are moments in time where you're like, you know, I could go to Hawaii with my friend, cool, or, you know, maybe I just want to share it with my family instead and go there. Like, there are things like that you're gonna end up learning about yourself, and that was the same thing with us. Like, there are moments where we had breaks because, you know, we had to learn about ourselves again. We had to become individuals, and then we came back together, and it was like, fuck, even better. Now I understand myself. I can be a better person for you, and you can be a better person for me, and my happiness is not relied on you.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I found is a lot of couples end up fighting a lot. It's because either they're not like, they expect the other person to like what they like or this and that, but then they put their happiness in that person.
Exactly. It's codependence.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you have to be happy for me to be happy.
Yeah.
And then, so how do I make you happy? Oh, you're not happy. Everything I do is not making you happy. And then, like, it causes that conflict.
Yeah, it causes that riff, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, I found that's where, you know, where people become, there's a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
You know, and even if people get married later on in life, that could still affect it. And that was one of the things that we always talked about, is just being very open with each other about like how we feel, you know. But when I was going through postpartum, I just, like I said, I didn't want to be a burden to my wife. She literally pushed the baby out.
Right.
And I watched all of this happen, and the pain that she went through and everything. And, you know, like, again, shout out to her. She breastfed for most of everything. She didn't, you know, like, she, God willing, she was able to do that. Right. And, you know, she did a lot of things with pregnancy. Like, mothers do crazy things for kids. And I didn't really understood what mothers really went through until, like, we had a son, or we had a baby, and my son was being nurtured by his mom. Yeah. Because there's only so many things I can do as a dad, right? Like, unfortunately, I can't breastfeed. Yeah. Right? I can only bottle feed. So, like, even waking up in the middle of the night and my wife is just, you know, she's breastfeeding, reading a book. Like, I didn't feel like I should say anything. Yeah. But if it wasn't for my cousin telling me, you know, you really got to open up to this stuff because you guys work as a unit. Like, I really forgot about teamwork.
And that's like, man, there's so much powerful energy in what you're saying, man. And like, I think I think for a lot of fathers out there, you kind of feel like it's hard to ask for help because you're supposed to be like Superman of the family, right? Like you're supposed to be a superhero and like, I don't know, I guess what have been kind of the major challenges for you as a young father, like that stand out for you?
I think just trying to be like my dad. You know what I mean? Like how you're saying your dad is stoic. I feel like my dad didn't become more sensitive. My dad is a sensitive guy.
Yeah.
But he wasn't sensitive with me. Like he wasn't mean or anything like that, but he was very like man's man, like that's my dad. Like me and my dad would like punch each other in the arm and stuff kind of thing. Growing up. But it wasn't until I started learning how to really open up. Like I would open up to my dad about stuff, especially when I became a dad. Yeah. I like opened up to my dad about a lot of stuff, just like parenthood stuff. It was just like, I didn't realize it was going to be this hard and all that kind of stuff. And then even him now, like I can see the sensitive side with him when he's with Carter. Like he's like, he's not like a boys don't cry kind of thing anymore. Like he said it maybe once or twice to Carter when he was maybe like 1.5. And I just said like, Dad, we can't say stuff like that anymore. And I explained it to him. Right. And I only maybe said it once or twice to him. And now my dad's like, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to hurt, which is like, where the fuck were you when I was growing up? But at the same time, like I get it. Like that 100. Was, like that's how he was raised. My, like I didn't really get to know my grandfather, like from my dad's side, because he passed when I was only 3 years old. So he was Carter's age when my grandfather passed. Wow. So I didn't really know, but just from seeing the pictures of my dad and his siblings and then seeing my grandfather, like I get it. Like they had all boys in the family, so they were like very tough. Yeah. But for me, I think the hardest thing is it's like being authentic, but showing emotion. Like I cry in front of my son. When we had the miscarriage, I would just burst out into tears out of nowhere. Like I was driving him one time and I just started crying. And then he's like, Dad, why are you crying? I was like, I'm just sad right now. Like I just had a thought about Atlas because our baby was going to be named Atlas. Yeah. And I was like, I just had a thought about Atlas and it just made me really sad. And then I don't know if he started crying because I didn't turn back, but I just heard like a sniffle from him. And he's like, it's okay, Dad. Like, be sad, but I'm here. And I was like, damn. Wow. Like we didn't really teach that. We just show it, and I'm starting to see that the more and more I show how I am with my wife to my son, like I every morning, I've never missed a day, but I'll wake up. If I'm the first one up or if they're the first ones up and I wake up, I see them like, good morning, guys. I love you. Give both of them a kiss every morning. I never fuck with that routine. That is my thing. And even if my wife wakes up at 5 a.m. and she's working in the office and I wake up at like 6 or 7, after I'll make sure to kiss Carter, wake him up, give him a hug. And then I'll like go downstairs and do the same thing. Just check up on my wife, be like, you need anything? You good? Like good morning. Like no matter what, like regardless if we're mad, whatever, like it is always just been ingrained that I just have to do that. And I notice now Carter, when he wakes up, he'll be like waking up and he's like, morning, Mom, morning, Dad, love you. And then give us a hug or give us a kiss. And it's just like, man, we showed that to him. 100%. Like he watched the example. We didn't say like, when you wake up, you say good morning and you give us a kiss, like he just sees it and he does that. And even when I was like leaving the house today, I kissed my wife and I was like, I'll see you guys later, and I kissed him. And I was like walking, he's like, hey, like, where's my kiss? I was like, fuck, you're right, bro. My bad. What I mean? Like, it's stuff like that. Like you just, to me, I think that's, it's hard, but it's easy. But also like, sometimes you can't do dumb shit.
Man,
Right.
I love that, man. Like you're really modeling what it is to be a man or just a human to your son, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
whether that's expressing like any emotion, whether that's like love and gratitude or sadness or anything like that.
Yeah.
And like for me, you know, maybe our parents in some way they felt like being a father means sacrificing. Like you're just like sacrificing, and maybe that is a lot of what being a father is, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would love to be a father one day. It's like a calling that I have. And like for me, it's like I've always thought like to be a good father, I just have to be myself. I have to be an example. Like kids don't do as you say, they do as you do.
Yeah.
So how can I go and tell my kid to be like, hey, be yourself. Don't care what these people think. Like follow your dreams. And then I'm like in an office job that I hate.
Right. And you're coming home miserable or
Exactly.
anything, right? And it's like that is like one of the hardest parts is making sure you are what you're telling your kids to be and making sure you follow through with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the follow through.
Yeah.
Another tough thing for me is like we just recently got them in daycare. And in our daycare, like we can watch them on our phones or whatever just to see what they're doing. And the hard thing for me is trying to turn my phone off to not watch, to see like what he's doing, because I don't want to be a hovering parent. But one of the things I noticed, and it was just this week, like so my son's still new, he's still transitioning, and like on Friday last week, he cried the whole time he was there.
Wow.
Came home and his eyes were so puffy and red. And he's fair skinned, so like his nose, everything was like complete red. But when I saw him, he's like, "Oh, hi, Dad." And I was like looking at him, and I broke down in front of him. I was like, "Buddy, I was so sad. Like I know I saw you on camera and you were crying a lot." And I was like, "I'm so sorry." And I was like, "I feel so guilty that you have to be here." But at the same time, like I have to think like this is good for him on a social aspect.
Yeah.
Right? Because kids need to be around other kids. Like he can't, as much as he wants to be around mommy and daddy, you know, like we're not kids and we're not essentially your friend. We're still a parent, you know?
Yeah.
So I saw him crying a lot and I was like, fuck. He was there from 7:30 to my wife picked him up at like 3:34 and he was crying the whole time. But he told them on Friday, "I'll see you tomorrow," which is Saturday, but he doesn't have daycare until Monday.
Yeah.
But the fact that he said, "I'll see you tomorrow," no matter how sad he was, he persevered. And it's like, you're so brave.
Yeah.
You know, and I really, really get inspired by him with that, is his bravery. And he always said, "I'm not brave, I'm scared, I'm shy." And that's the thing that makes him sad, is he's a very shy kid.
Right.
I was a shy kid growing up. My wife is a shy kid. And I still remember like hiding behind my dad's leg when he was like, you know, like say hi to, you know, whoever it was. But he went back on Monday, cried for a little bit. I saw him on camera. I can't help. And that's the thing. That's the hardest part for me, is just to not watch. But I was just curious. Like, I just want to know how he's doing now. He cried for a little bit and then he was like playing with everyone now. And then he still says he doesn't like daycare. He prefers preschool over daycare because he's also in preschool. But he's persevering. But one of the things that I found, and I told my wife this and I started venting about it, was I ended up going on Google and just like looking up how to overcome, you know, like your child going to daycare, like anxiety for myself. Because I was already sad that he was sad. And I was also looking up, how do I make daycare fun for my child? Like searching stuff up like that. And there was no blog that had anything to do with dads. It was all mom shit, which, shout out to all the moms. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was just like, everything is a mom thing. And what if I just need that community of dads?
Yeah.
You know, like, where is the dad blog? Which in my mind, I'm like, maybe I should just be the guy that
100%.
starts it. You know what I mean? Or like even just doing stuff like this where I'm just talking about being a dad.
Yeah, dude.
Right? And being very vulnerable, talking about our miscarriage, talking about hardships in marriage, talking about, you know, going through postpartum, just giving that open door for other guys, not even like dads, just other guys that have maybe gone through the same thing, regardless if they're married or not. And just being very open book and normalizing dad stuff. I have already accepted the fact that I'm not going to be like my dad, who's the handyman of the house. Like I could be like, Dad, can you make me a table? Which he's done. He's helped me. Nuts. And it's like, he, you know, like that's his thing. You know, he fixes airplanes. So his tools are his thing. For me, t-shirts and design are my thing. So I understand that I'm not that trade dad that we grew up seeing on TV. I'm not fucking Tim Allen or a Carl Winslow. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like the macho trade dad. I'm still a tough dad. I'm just like, I embrace the fact that I make t-shirts and stuff, and so do other women, but I'm a crafty dad. You know what I mean? Like I come, like making that a norm for me. And just even saying like a crafty dad, we fucking say that shit 15 years ago. People like, yo, that's a little gay, you know, and not to knock anybody else, but that's just a term that people would say. Yeah. Right. Like I make fucking t-shirts for my little action figures, and imagine me telling people in high school that I make little clothes for toys. What do you think they're going to say to me? You know what I mean? Like that was a term that they would be saying, but now it's like, fuck, let's normalize the shit that we do as men, regardless 100%. If we're a parent or not. I embrace the fact that I'm a crafty dad. My family, we do crafts, man, and I love it. And sometimes like I'll come up with ideas with stuff, or I'll like really like, there was one thing we were painting rocks for Halloween, and I got into fucking painting my rock.
I love that.
But I'm like, I'm not embarrassed to say that I can't fix a fucking toilet. I can't, you know, I can't change the oil to my car. Why would I, like, in hindsight, I don't care about that shit. Like, I'll go to a Jiffy Lube and get them to do for me. Because one, me doing it is just going to take up time where I can be creative. Right? But it's stuff that we grew up on. I remember watching my dad do that stuff. I remember when bad plumbing was happening and my dad would just go, like, he would fucking fix this with no YouTube or nothing. He just knew how to do it, right?
Well, man, even the way that I look at it, it's like generations is just like passing a torch. I think like the dads that we had were the dads that we needed. Like those were the type of dads we needed at that time. We needed these stoic men's men type of dads. And then now to heal the next part of the trauma, to pass the torch to the next, we need more sensitive dads. We need dads who are more in tune with their emotions. We need dads who can like have that balance and like show their kid like, this is how you cry. This is how sadness moves through the body. This is how we do this. Because like our parents could do all that other stuff, but they couldn't do what we're doing right now. You know, and then I'm sure your son is going to be a different dad, but that's going to be the type of dad that generation needs. So like to go back and compare is like silly. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, and you're not even a dad. And for you to say that, like I've never even thought about that. You know, that's crazy to just like, that was a dad that we needed for our generation, you know, and to like try to push that same dad is not going to fix anything these days. Right. As like different as this world is, you know, whether people agree with it or not, we're a different generation. We're a different type of human being these days. But man, like that's such a dope perspective from someone that's not a dad, just to say.
One day, man, one day.
But yeah, man, just like that's like when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, for me, that legacy is the legacy that I leave here. Whether I'm here today, tomorrow, next whatever amount of years, whenever it's my time to go, if Carter pulls up a video, pulls up my website or my accolades, he sees that I mention him. He sees that I mention his mom, and like my life revolves around them and not looking at what other people like about me anymore. You know?
Well, man.
And just like loving what you're into.
Yeah, man. Full out acceptance of who you are. And like watering that, you know? Like, yeah, man, I want to talk more about that. I want to talk more about what you're working on now, because obviously Legal Hustle is kind of like you're transitioning out of that. So what are you moving into now? I want to know more about YYC Soldiers, man, because it's cool. I'm interested in it.
Yeah, so while I was in school, I started YYC Soldiers. In 2012, I created like a Facebook group, and I had a couple of people help me out with it while like inviting people in. And Andrew Fung is one of them, one of the originals. So he's been with me since the beginning.
Wow.
Of it. And then our second, like Adam came right after, when we started putting our show together, our very first show. But YYC Soldiers, I created as a Facebook group to just kind of build a community, because as a club promoter, like when I would go to the club, I would still be rolling in sneakers, and I got away with it because like when you're working it,
right,
you know, like back then you couldn't wear certain things to the club.
There's like a dress code.
Yeah, but I didn't give a fuck about the dress code because I knew I could get into the club.
Yeah,
so I'd be wearing sneakers, I'd still be dressed in streetwear. But I remember like it felt like I was a middleman for everyone. It's like all my homies are in the Northwest or Northwest. But then I also had friends that were in the Southeast, Southwest, right? And I would just be that guy where people are like, yo, do you know anyone that has this shoe? Or do you know anyone that has this shoe? And it's like, I know this person on this side. He's your size. Like, you're from the Northeast. He's from the Southwest. Like, let me introduce you to each other. So it was kind of like, that was the reason why I wanted YYC Soldiers. But selfishly also, I just wanted to know who is my size, because when I didn't have money as a kid, I wanted to buy all the sneakers that I missed out on. And who's my size, so I know that, you know, I can ask you if you're selling anything. Are you, you know, this or that? But it just ended up being like bigger than what it is. But I always had this vision, and the team always had the vision too, where it's not even just about the sneakers. It's just giving a safe space for kids like us, a place to appreciate things. Because again, when I go back and talk about sneakers and streetwear and the things I would wear, people would make fun of me sometimes, right? But what if you had a community that you can join and everyone likes the same shit? Whether it's like, maybe they like a different shoe, but they're into shoes. Maybe they like a certain brand, like a streetwear brand, but they're into streetwear. So it grew from a community, like we were all just trying to help each other out, right? You know, like, oh, you missed out on that shoe, like I can help you get it. Especially when I used to work at Champs. Like when people were like, yo, I can't find I couldn't get a pair online, can you help me out? Like, of course, man. Like, I know you're not about the resell. I'm not about the resell life. I could have made myself and Adam, we could have made thousands of dollars, right? Especially like when I worked at Foot Locker and Champs. Like I could have just fucking put pairs on the side and sold them for money, you know, but it doesn't do anything for the community. And I always look back at like, what if I walked out of this room and for some reason walked into another parallel universe, but I stumbled in front of 16-year-old Albert. And he's like wearing the freshest kicks, but people are like, yo, those kicks are whack. Or why are you dressed like that? You know what I mean? Like, what can I do for him to have a place where he can share his stuff? And YYC Soldiers was created as a Facebook group for the community. It was never about the money. It was never about the hype. You know, like I said, we could have made thousands of dollars just reselling shoes. We could have just been a reselling business. Yeah. We could have taken over Calgary at that point because nobody else would have been doing it. And with the connections that we had at the time, we could have got pairs easy, and I could have been flipping them for fucking 4 times the price of what they came out for. Right. So it was always about the community, but one of the things we always focused on was families, especially when it came to our sneaker events. Like, we want families to come because we just want to show them what we love. And nowadays, kids are into sneakers and streetwear and like cool shit, but their parents don't necessarily get it. So we want to be the ones that are like, come to our events or check out our Facebook group and like just see what we're all about. Like, we're not about the money. We're not about like how much you spent on a whole outfit. We're just dudes that, or not even dudes, but like people that just love the culture. We love sneakers. Like, for us, we saw sneakers as art. Yeah. And for me to build my portrait, I am the canvas where I build my foundation with my shoes, and then it goes up all the way to my hats. You know, like, that's how I put things together. You know, like I just rolled up here in like red and gray and Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls on my back. Like it's stuff like that where we just want to show that it's cool to just be an individual and be yourself. Obviously with the world in sneakers now, it's a little bit different because influencers are, in my opinion, they're kind of fucking shit up where you're not cool if you don't have this sneaker,
right.
you know, and, you know, a lot of kids get bullied for not having the Jordans or the Nikes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have any of that stuff. Like if you love what you have, and we always have the saying, it's buy what you like and wear what you buy. Right. Because there's a lot of people that will buy things that will just buy it for the hype and not even like wear them. Yeah. Because they're like, oh, I can't wear this. It's like, why? Like, did you not? Yeah. Totally. Did you not buy it because you like it? You know. So then show it off to the world, man. Yeah. Show that shit off. Like you spent X amount of money on a shoe. What's the purpose of it just chilling?
I feel
like
that.
At least like put them on once or twice. Like you don't have to flex on the gram. You just got to put it on and feel comfortable and excited for what you have. Yeah. But it's like that's kind of like what we want to instill and preserve as a culture here in Calgary. So YYC Soldiers is very focused on Calgary. We just recently are going to be launching our partnership. We've made a lot of announcements for it with a company called Soul Savvy. Okay. So Soul Savvy is another Canadian company here, but they're international now. Like they get invited to Nike events. They do a lot of things for for the community within like the Soul Savvy community because they don't fuck with resellers. You know, like it's all about, you know, if you get a pair of shoes for retail and you need to sell them, like you sell them for retail. Like you don't sell them for more because it's not about that. If you can assist another member in getting a pair of shoes, like if you're looking for a specific shoe and I got it, like, yo, I'm gonna help you out, man. I'm not gonna keep these. Or like you need help getting that pair of shoes. Okay, I'm gonna log on at 5 o'clock with you in the morning and I'm gonna try and help you get that pair of shoes. Like that's the community that they built. So Soul Savvy is a new partnership that we built. In my mind, I'm like, man, it took 10 years in the making for a company to finally recognize the work that we do here in Calgary. But we're launching our plus services, which is Soldiers Plus, that caters to sneakerheads here in Alberta. So Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton, and beyond within Alberta, where we have a new membership program, which is Soldiers Plus. But yeah, like it's just all about community and building and just creating a safe space for kids. Like when I look at Carter, right? Giving him that safe space if he's into that stuff as he gets older. Man,
I love that. I love it, bro. Like community is so important. To belong to a community is like one of the most important things for humans. So I love that you're doing that, bro. And just everything you're doing, man, just modeling, just authenticity, man. And it's just giving other people permission to do that too, you know?
Thank you. Yeah, man. And I got to give it up to the dance community because it gave me a spot. Like it showed me what a community is. It showed me like a place to be who I am. Right. Yeah. And it goes back to my 3 things: streetwear, sneakers, and dance. That saved me as a kid, but not knowing until, you know, just a couple months ago when I started doing therapy. Yeah. But community it's a huge thing, man. And I believe like therapy is a big thing. Having a good small circle, not a big circle, but a small circle of people you can really trust. And community is what really, you know, can help you out. 100. Because in that community, there's always someone that's like you that could help you out, whether it's getting a pair of shoes or, you know, you just need a community of like-minded men.
100%.
That, you know, sensitive, strong men. Right?
Yeah, man.
Like, sensitive, strong was never in a word, like in a sentence together, right? Yeah. But now it's a thing, and it's dope to have conversations like this and to talk about like the things we do and the things that we're doing. And yeah, man, that's kind of like how I take my businesses now, whether it be Legal Hustle, whether it be YYC Soldiers or By Miles or my dance crews and stuff. So just like pushing community and building off that.
Bro, I love it. You know, we've talked a lot, and you've like said a lot of things you're doing is for your younger self. This podcast for me is also for my younger self. So maybe we could end off the episode just with you giving some advice to like the younger version of you, or like people who might be like, you know, on the same journey or on the same path as yourself.
Yeah. I mean, if you're like me or you're like Nick, and you know, you struggle to figure out what your identity is to not force anything. If you love a certain thing, if you're passionate about something, to really just like hone in on that, you know. And if I am talking to my young self and you are listening to this, just know that you're gonna, regardless if you feel alone right now, you're gonna find people that love you within a community, that are gonna support you, that are gonna have your back when the times get tough. You're gonna find a partner or a person, a friend that's gonna be there, whether it's one person, two people that are gonna give you that extra push. It might be hard now, but it definitely gets easier the longer you hold on to being who you really are. And again, like, it might take a while. It took me a couple decades to really know who I am as a person, as a partner, and even as a dad and as a community builder. But as long as you stay true to yourself, no matter how old you are right now, like, we just got to keep pushing together, because at the end of the day, we're all pushing the same goal.
I love it, bro. Man, thank you so much. I'm like beyond grateful we could finally meet after like over 10 years of being in the same circle, man.
Bro, I swear we were in like, back in our party days, we were probably in the exact same circle, probably standing side by side with a drink, but no one really formally introduced us to each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's dope. Like, if you guys are watching this podcast, man, it's super exciting to sit here and be with Nick. 'Cause like, I've seen him all over social media when we were younger, and vice versa for him, just like with us doing our thing and the grind that we did. And now we're finally talking as men, and just like being super open and vulnerable with everything. So, yo, thank you again for having me on, because it's been a true blessing, and, you know, great to finally sit down and meet you.
Bro, it's been an honor, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you.